series. Okay? How many of you, this is the first time to Noah? This is your first time to Noah. Raise your hand. First time to Noah. Okay, quite a few. So let me sum up real quick what we dealt with in week 1, and then we got to jump into some tricky, weird stuff tonight. I spent the entire first session focusing on the fact that Noah's father, anybody remember Noah's father's name? Starts with an L, rhymes with Lamech. Yeah. That was a good enough hint, right? Noah's father, Lamech, believed that the Lord was going to send one who would bring relief and deliverance from sin and the curse. So Noah's father believed someday God is going to send somebody who's going to relieve the earth of sin and the curse. So Lamech named his son Noah, which means comfort, hoping that maybe Noah would be the one that God would use to bring comfort. Now, we know that Noah isn't the one. Noah is a picture or a shadow or a type of the one. And the one is Jesus. And we're going to see as we work through this series that it is Jesus who brings the ultimate comfort from sin and the curse. So, as we plummet over the next 2 weeks into the depths of sin that the earth was in right before the flood. And when I say plummet, I mean we're plummeting. Like we're diving headfirst into the depths of sin that made God say, enough is enough. I don't want us to forget in the midst of that comfort is coming. I don't want us to forget that in the midst of all the chaos around you now, comfort has come. Deliverance has come. And deliverance will come when Jesus comes back in all of its fullness. So, all right, tonight is tricky. All right, it's really, really tricky. And as we read this text in a minute, you're going to see how tricky it is. And I'm just going to let you know right now, those of us that live in the West, which is all of you, we do not have a very good view of the supernatural. All right, the West has emphasized the intellect. The West has emphasized the natural. Whereas in the Jewish Old Testament, emphasized the supernatural all of the time. And so often we miss stuff because we look at it from a natural point of view or an intellectual point of view, and we miss the supernatural point of view that is so vitally important. And so tonight, some take a natural interpretation of our text. I do not. I take a supernatural interpretation of our text. And I'm letting you know right now, it's going to be weird. But I believe it's true, and I believe it's right. And so we're going to jump into it. Genesis chapter 6, we're going to read the first 4 verses. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive. And they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, or with man forever, for he is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. First question I want us to answer, the first thing I want us to look at, what does the term Elohim mean? You say, why are we dealing with the term Elohim? Verse 2, the sons of God, okay, very simply, in Hebrew, is the sons of Elohim. Elohim. Now, what in the world does the term Elohim mean? I see, you've seen my trusty whiteboard, right? That's falling, it's falling. See my trusty whiteboard? There's a reason why I brought this, because I'm a visual person, so I want to let you see visuals. All right, so here's the word Elohim. Hebrew word Elohim. It is a plural word. Okay? The word Elohim is a plural word. Now, this is supposed to be kind of like an umbrella. Like this is just an arrow pointing up. This is kind of like an umbrella, okay? Elohim, in its very basic definition, is a term that references the spiritual beings. Okay? Elohim is a term that references spiritual beings. That means Yahweh is Elohim. Yahweh is under the umbrella of the term Elohim. Yahweh is a spiritual being, correct? God is a spirit, correct? Yes. God is a spirit. God is Elohim. But Yahweh is not the only spiritual being underneath the umbrella of Elohim. There are also these guys. Angels. Angels are underneath the umbrella of Elohim. Okay? Also this guy. Satan. Satan is, and by the way, angels, there's a hierarchy. There's stronger angels, more powerful angels. There's messenger angels. There's weaker angels. Angels, there's strong ones, there's big ones, there's powerful ones. There's different varieties of angels. There's also a variety of these guys. Demons. Demons are also Elohim. So, here's what I want you to understand right off the bat. Okay? Is that the term Elohim is a plural word that refers to all spiritual beings. Question, are you Elohim? No. You are not Elohim. Alright? This word Elohim doesn't mean there's more than one God. Alright? Yahweh, okay, let me ask you this question. Out of all of the Elohim, who is the only one that has not been created? Yahweh. Yahweh is the spiritual being that has not been created. Every other spiritual being has been created. Yahweh created them. But the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, use the term Elohim to refer to all the spiritual beings. And so we have to decipher when and what they're meaning when they say sons of Elohim. Elohim, here's what that means. That means Elohim is not the personal name of God. That is Yahweh. Some people think that they hear the word Elohim, they think that that just automatically refers to God. No, it does not. Elohim could refer to any spiritual being. So we got to kind of use context and think about what the author is saying to understand when they use this word Elohim. Let me give you some examples, all right? We're not going to look all these up, but you have the text in front of you if you want to look them up later. Psalm 95:3 says this: Yahweh is king over all the Elohim. So here's what the psalmist is saying. Yahweh, because he is the creator God, because he is the only one that has always existed, because he is king over all things, Yahweh is king over all of the Elohim. Okay? Here's another one. Psalm 82:1 says that the Elohim stand in the divine assembly and that God administers judgment in the midst of the Elohim. There, what it means is all the good Elohim, the angels that are working with the Lord, when God makes decisions, the Elohim are in his midst. Now, we know the angels are in the midst of God. So that shouldn't surprise us. Here's another one. Job 38:7 says that the sons of Elohim were around when God created the earth. That means that all of these guys, all of these Elohim that God created, they were around when God created the earth. Man wasn't around, but the Elohim were. Job chapter 1 verse 6 says that the sons of Elohim presented themselves before God. Now let's go to our text. Okay, does this make sense? All right, I tried to draw it because it helps me to think about the umbrella and all the Elohim underneath there. Yahweh is under the umbrella of Elohim. Yahweh is the only uncreated, eternal being. Every other Elohim was created. Okay? Now let's go back to Genesis chapter 6. In verse 2, when we see where it says the sons of God, in Genesis 2, the only language we have in the Old Testament of sons of God, sons of Elohim, the only language we have in the Old Testament are sons of Elohim, referring to spiritual beings. Not human beings, spiritual beings. Okay? So the sons of Elohim are these guys. Not Yahweh. Yahweh's never called the son of Elohim. But all these other spiritual beings are called the sons of Elohim. Okay? By the way, I told you that people take a natural interpretation and a spiritual interpretation. The natural interpretation is to say that the sons of God refer to the descendants of Seth, and the daughters of men refer to the descendants of Cain. And so those were Adam and Eve's third child and first child. And if you were a descendant of Seth, you were a son of God. And if you were a descendant of, I just simply cannot. I worked through it. I tried. I thought. Some great Calvin and Luther, that's what they believed. The Jewish people at the time of Jesus, guess what they believed? They believed they were spiritual beings. They did not take the natural approach. They took the supernatural approach. They took the spiritual approach. They read sons of God to be these guys. Now, we also have Jewish writings that are not biblical writings. So the first 39 books of the Bible, right? Okay, that's the Hebrew Bible. All right, because it came before Jesus. We call it the Hebrew Bible. It's a part of our Bible, but it's the Hebrew Bible. All right? There are other books that were written that are not a part of the Hebrew Bible, and they're not inspired by God, but they write history for us. All right? One of those is the book of Enoch. Have you guys ever heard of the book of Enoch? Did you know that was a book that was written? Enoch. Now, Enoch actually writes an account of the text we just read. Here's what he writes. And again, this is not scriptural, but it's letting us know how the Jewish people thought. And when the sons of men had multiplied in those days, beautiful and comely daughters were born to them. And the watchers, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them and said to them, come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the daughters of men, and let us beget ourselves children. So, Jewish people believed that this sons of God was talking about spiritual beings. Also, do you know that there were ancient pagans in Mesopotamia, which today we call the Middle East? All right? We call it the Middle East today. Back then it was called Mesopotamia. There are pagan Mesopotamian stories that were flood stories. They talked about flood. And let me just tell you a few things they had in common. They believed there was a large boat that saved humans and saved animals. And in these stories, there was a group of demons called the Akalu, or Akalu. These demons mated with human beings and produced giant offspring. And Marduk, head god in Babylon, cursed them for doing this and sent them into the abyss in the depths of the earth. Now, I say that to say, this idea of spiritual beings being the sons of God is an idea that the Jewish people believed, and not only the Jewish people believed, but even the pagans had stories that echoed the truth of God's word. Now, when we carry this idea of sons of God into the New Testament, we have 2 Peter and Jude 8 through 10, and both of those passages tell us that some angels left their position of authority and rebelled against God. Now, when did that happen? When Satan rebelled against God. All right? Now, you remember, right, at the beginning, Yahweh and all of these, there weren't demons yet. You had Lucifer and all the angels, all right? And then Satan rebelled against Yahweh and took with him angels, all right, which we now call demons, right? Those that rebelled against Yahweh. So now we've got good Elohim and we got bad Elohim, right? We got angels and demons. We have Satan, all right, who has now rebelled against God. Jude 8 through 10 and 2 Peter 2 tells us that these Elohim rebelled against Yahweh. They left their place of authority, and when they left their place of authority, God sent them down to earth. So now the demons and Satan, these fallen Elohim, are on the earth now. Some have been cast into the pit already by the Lord. So, who are we talking about when we're talking about the sons of God mating with the daughters of men? I believe Scripture teaches that these demons, these fallen spiritual Elohim, decided either to take on human form, which we know angels can do, all right? Take on human form, or they possessed men, one or the other. We're not told exactly, explicitly in Scripture. We don't know if they took on human form or if they possessed men. But we know that they mated with human women. They mated with human women. So demons either possessed human beings or took on human form themselves and mated with human beings. Now there's another tricky part to this text. Look at verse 4. I'm leaving verse 3 for next week. It's pretty self-explanatory. But look at verse 4. The other tricky part about this text is to decide who in the world are the Nephilim. You see that in verse 4? The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. And when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of man, they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. So, who are these Nephilim? Once again, the Jewish people had the Hebrew Bible, but the Jews also translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek. Do you know what we call that book, by the way? The Septuagint. It's the Greek Old Testament. It's called the Septuagint. And in the Septuagint, do you know how they translate the word Nephilim? They just flat out translate it giant. Giant. They, both in this text and in Numbers 13:33, it is translated giant. In verse 13, Numbers 13:33, remember when the 12 spies went into Canaan? And they snuck into Canaan to see if what was going on the other side of the walls, and they saw giants. And they came back and they told Moses, we can't take these guys. There's giants in the land, and we're like grasshoppers to them. All right? The word there is the word Nephilim. There are Nephilim in the land, and we're like grasshoppers to them. It is the word giants. It is the word giants. So, when we see that the result of the sons of Elohim mating with the daughters of men resulted in the mighty men of old, the men of renown, here's what I think the text is saying to us. I think the text is saying that these fallen Elohim mated with the daughters of men and produced giant offspring, monstrosities that came from the result of mating demons with human beings. Told you it's weird. Told you it's weird. And I believe that those giants were known throughout the ages as the mighty men of old. The mighty men that did incredible things. Incredible things that would make you think, my goodness, there must be some spiritual power behind these mighty men to be able to do these things. Yeah, exactly. According to multiple theologians such as A.W. Pink, James Montgomery Boyce, guys I love, it's very probable, they say, that when we look at Greek and Roman mythology, what does every, and even Norse mythology, when we look at every mythology in the world, do you know what we always have? We have divine beings They're half divine and they're half human. In every single mythology you could point to, we have half divine and half human beings. And AWP and James Montgomery Boyce say it is very probable that where they even got that idea from was for these giants that we're talking about here, these Nephilim, that were the result of demons possessing men or taking on human form, mating with human women, and producing a race of giants that were the mighty men of old, men of renown. And then Greek mythology simply expanded upon it. They exaggerated it. They stretched the stories. You guys, many of you haven't read this yet, but anybody ever read Homer's Iliad and Odyssey? Okay, if you haven't, you need to. You'll see what we're talking about. Like he talks about these half god, half human creatures, and then he talks about how powerful and great they were and how mighty they were. Now, what's the point? Right? I mean, you're like, okay, this is weird, man. I ain't gonna lie to you, this is weird. Well, I'm with you. I think it's weird. And the reason why I think it's weird is because I'm used to thinking intellectually and naturally. Like, I don't think very, my default isn't to think supernaturally. So I'm with you. So that's why this question, this last point is, what's the point? Why is this in the Bible? What is the point of this? We study a text like this with all these technical details, and we have to draw pictures to make sure we understand it. What's the point? Well, I believe the point falls at the feet of this guy right here, Satan. I believe that the point of this has to do with what Satan was trying to do. Now, immediately when Satan got Adam and Eve to fall, at the beginning in the garden, when Adam and Eve sinned and they fell, immediately God said something to Satan. Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, he says, the offspring of the woman is going to crush your head. Huh? The offspring of the woman is going to crush your head. You will, and God said, you're going to bruise his heel, and he's going to crush your head. Who is that referring to? Jesus. Jesus is coming, and you will bruise his heel by he will die. He will be bruised, but in bruising him, your head will get crushed. So Satan knew from the very beginning that there is coming human offspring, and this human offspring eventually is going to destroy me. Satan believed exactly what Lamech believed. Satan knew there's a comforter coming. There's one who's going to end sin. There's one who is coming who is going to fix things. I can't have that. Satan cannot have that. So what better thing for Satan to do than to literally try to remove the human race from the earth? But look, by doing this, by the sons of God mating with the daughters of men, I believe Satan was attempting to end the human race so that Jesus couldn't come. Because Mary wouldn't be a virgin. Mary would be some monstrosity of a demon and a human, and everything would be screwed up. That's what I believe Satan was trying to do. And God says, I will have none of that. You cannot thwart my plan. You know why, devil, you can't thwart my plan? While you may be an Elohim, you are not Yahweh. You are not God. So you can try to throw everything into chaos, but I will have the final word, and my plan will come to pass. Now, this is one of the reasons why God sends the flood. God is going to wipe out the race, at least for now, of the Nephilim. God is going to say, I will have none of this. And I am going to send the flood to end the devil's attack to ruin the human race, because my son is coming. My son is coming to save people from their sin. And so I was, and then what we'll do next week is we're going to look at verses 5 through 8, which will be a dive into the hearts of natural man. This is more of a supernatural explanation of what was going on. Like here's the supernatural stuff that was going on the earth. Why God wanted to send the flood and end it. Next week we're going to go, now what was the heart of natural man? What was the heart of the human beings on the earth at the time? And what we're going to see is, that's another reason why God says, I'm going to end this. Now I told you this is weird. I told you this was tricky. But I believe that when we get down to it, it helps us understand what's actually going on here. And it helps us understand why the devil would do something like this. He was trying to prevent the Messiah from being able to come. But because Satan is a son of Elohim, and he is not Yahweh himself, he is not the creator of the Elohim, nothing Satan can do can thwart the plan of God. Satan bruised Jesus' heel, didn't he? He did, didn't he? Jesus died on the cross. Satan bruised Jesus' heel. And in doing so, he got his head crushed. Because he cannot thwart Yahweh's plan. Aren't you happy for that? Aren't you glad that nothing can stop God's plan? Good stuff tonight. Weird stuff. Those of you that are visiting, you came on a weird night. I'll let you know right now. This is a weird night for you to show up. Come back next week. It's not quite as weird.